Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another realm-shattering edition of the best
Ooh,
darn show on the
that's
internet,
new.
the Over Sharon Show. Yeah, I like to mix it up,
Change it up.
change it up a little bit. If you're new to our show, thank you so much. Welcome, and make sure you subscribe, hit thumbs up, all that stuff if you enjoy what you like. If you came here through the Myers-Briggs tags that we're gonna start putting on some of the episodes, just to let you know that Sharon is a ENTJ allegedly, and I am an INTP. That's what they tell me
Allegedly. But
allegedly. So feel free to follow along and type us and see what you think. We do have some episodes on Myers-Briggs, so you can go check that out as well. And
and
welcome.
we'll be starting a just kind of a series on just more topics
Yeah,
related to
we
that.
have a series on Myers-Briggs, but we plan to do more on that. So stay tuned. I have a quote. That's the way we start our show every week. And today's quote is from a guy you guys might know, C.S. Lewis. A great many of those who debunk traditional, or as they say, sentimental values have in the background values of their own which they believe to be immune from the debunking process. C.S. Lewis from the
Abolition.
the abolition of man. Very, very interesting, pretty no, very interesting quote, simple, and I mean, we could apply it to so many things. It really is like, does C.S. Lewis watch the Over Sharon show? Maybe,
It
maybe in
was
one
in
of
the
his.
Akashic
Um,
records.
yeah, it was already there. So yeah, but I really love that because it makes you think. It's like what we say: if you're pointing a finger, you always have four fingers pointing back at you. And I wanted to use that quote today because we're going to be talking about the law of one. And I think it fits in well. Before we get too much into law one, I will say this about it. But before we do that, Sharon's going to pull a card. But I'll say that I like this quote because the law of one is channeled material, and there's a lot of controversy around channeled material. Is it real? Is it fake? And I think the quote fits well because it's like, you know what? It reminds me also of those of people saying, I reached the greatest wisdom when I realized that I didn't know anything. So it's kind of like a quote to remind people, or even to just put it in their heads if they never heard it before, that, hey, you might be wrong about something. It's always good to come from this place of knowing that you might be wrong about something. I mean, yeah, you want to be confident and do what you got to do and be a nice, strong man or woman out in the world. But it's good to know, have that thought like, hey, it's what I'm doing. Is this, am I right here? Am I wrong? And maybe I'm speaking to myself. Like I said, I'm an INTP. So I've noticed in my past that I have an idea about something and I'm so sure I'm right. And I'll go out there and, I'll be like a preacher, and I'll just be sharing this message, and then I find out later that, oh man, I might have been wrong. So I just try to approach things differently now. But that's why I use the quote, and I know you love the quote. I think you shared it with me, right? You're the one
Yeah,
who.
I sent you that quote because I saw it somewhere. Now I can't remember where. I was watching either a video or reading it. Oh, yes, I was reading a blog or something, and somebody had posted that quote, and I thought it's a really good one. Um, because yeah, some people like to point the finger about, something and debunk you. I've I don't know, the whole debunking thing, and we've probably talked about this before, but the whole, you know, um having an argument or a debate with somebody and
Mhm.
trying to debunk someone and someone else's, to me, is so useless. I mean, maybe there are people out there who still need to do that, and that's fine. But for me, like, for many years, I've really, really disliked that because um it's everyone is in their own different place, right? And like when you start to try to debate someone and debunk them or whatever. It's like, why are you so sure of what you know that you have to try to convince someone else that you're right and they're wrong? It's just so silly to me. And it's just, yeah.
It's also, you know, so the argument could be made that, hey, if there's like some crazy cult or like Scientology, and I'm trying to rescue people from it, I'm trying to put out a documentary and debunk it and all this stuff, and I understand that, and that's great. It's cool to debunk some of the mainstream stuff and all that. But what I think Sharon and I are kind of alluding to really is, are you doing this because you're trying to save the world? Like, am I gonna figure all this out and figure it out and save the world and save all my friends and family? And I'm gonna,
Yeah.
what maybe there's a part of you that needs to be saved by yourself, not any external figure. It's really about know thyself, know yourself, because I feel like my whole world has really changed. I talk about this all the time, but I don't care. But I even started watching, like I said, TV again. I took a few years off. I mean, I'd watch things here and there, but now I watch it a little more regularly at night for like a couple hours, not
Like
daily.
shows though, right?
Yeah, yeah, just shows. Yeah,
Not
exactly. And I come at it from this whole different angle because when I first started getting to a lot of truther stuff, I'd watch and I would just get mad. I'm like, oh, they're trying to put this in, they're trying to put this in. But now I watch things like Curb Your Enthusiasm, for example. It's what we've been watching lately. And I can see now what a great representation of cause and effect and karma that show displays for you, with all the things that go on in the humor and the nuances. And then, yeah, sometimes you could see some of the program they're doing, but it doesn't have to affect you. You could just be like, all right, they're doing the programming because that's what the networks were looking for, because that's the kind of message you're trying to get out, because XYZ. But it's not because they're trying to get us. And if it wasn't for them, we'd all be great. But because who knows what it would be like if it wasn't for them, right? Especially if it just all ended tomorrow. I mean, it might be crazy. People might be like, you know what? I'm wishing for those good times again. That's a recurring theme in Dune. You'll see, because they skip ahead a lot, like thousands of years, or even just when Paul. So in the first two movies, or in the first book, spoiler alert, Paul takes over the Empire, and the next book that Frank wrote is, I believe, 20 years later or something like that. And there's people talking about how people already miss the old emperor. They're having this nostalgia for the old emperor already. It's like, oh man, that guy was fucking great, when they all hated him. But just because there's a new guy, and it's like the grass is always greener on the other side type of thing.
yes. Yes.
It all goes back to that self-knowledge. Like, you get to know yourself, and then you come to a place, which is home, and it's, look at it like it's a different place, or you don't recognize it, or however that saying goes. But yeah, anyway, go ahead. It
Yeah, the
sounds like you're
grass
gonna
is not always greener on the other side. It may
Yeah,
look like it for a little bit, but there's always something. It's always going to be something else. But yeah, I mean, I
there's
think
always a
we're
bit of a struggle in this realm. There's always going to be something that doesn't go right, or something, maybe some kind of resistance. And what we're basically saying is, if you work on yourself and know all these things, then you're going to be able to handle that resistance. It can even be fun. It could be play. I was listening to the Bhagavad Gita again, and they're saying how some of the Hindus look at the world as it was created by Krishna, and play like it was just, or Vishnu, I think, is who Krishna is embodying. He's the creator, and he was just like made it in play. So if you could take that idea, it's the same kind of thing. You're not taking things personally. You're out there in the world just doing your thing, and it really does become more like play. So
indeed.
indeed, but I think you have a
Oh,
card, right?
are we ready for the card?
Yeah.
It's the Ace of Cups from the Thoth deck, from the Aleister Crowley Thoth
Oh,
deck.
I love this card. Let's see. Yeah, this is such a great deck. I mean, for an evil guy, Mr. Aleister Crowley made a really pretty cool deck. I like this because it shows the webs, and you really don't, when you think of water, because cups are water, and this is like overflowing cup, right? But when you see water, you don't really think of webs, but I'm looking at it like they're waves. So this is kind of telling me that like webs and waves are kind of the same thing. It's just like some kind of media to travel, like for sound to travel or whatever. But yeah, it's a good one. It represents beginnings, which is nice because we're going to be talking about the introduction to the law of one today, and cups are all about emotions. So I feel like emotions and the things that cups and water specifically represent have a lot to do with the law of one when it comes to consciousness. Of course, it takes all four elements, but yeah. So it's kind of like
You're
synchronistic
showing yourself, by the way. Just
for
it's
taking a
just
new
you right
beginning.
now.
Oh,
So
I was showing yourself. I was showing myself. Oh, sorry, guys.
that's okay.
How did that happen?
You can put it
Maybe,
on the both of us. Just put
yeah,
it on the
it's
both of
back
us.
to both of us now. It should be.
Yeah, so that
Oh, that's
the
weird.
card's visible. But yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Yeah, I those that's interesting. The webs. It does look like a web.
And you think of the way like the Fibonacci sequence and like the way things get created and how web you ever see, I mean, I'm sure you've seen webs in nature when they're just like perfect. But then you think of a pebble being thrown in a still pond, it's the same kind of thing. I'll try this again.
Do you no, don't worry about it. Just because we're
Okay.
talking. Do you see the little it does it look like a pine cone that the cup is coming out of?
I'm gonna pick it again. Maybe I'm gonna go to let's
But
see.
if you do that and you talk, then it's gonna go back to you. Just leave it on both of us. It's fine.
Oh no, I just want to get a quick look. It should though when I pin it though, it should maybe they changed it. It should stay on you. Oh yeah, I see that. All right. Interesting. So you think of like the pine cone and what that represents. A pine cone, some pine cones under fire is when they release their seeds. They open up and release the seeds. The pineapples or pineapple, the pine cone's also associated with the pineal gland. So it's kind of an opening, an awakening. And this guy, I'd say, would represent like an emotional awakening, maybe of the heart and all the power that you can unlock when you open up your heart and you start to let go of different things and accept things.
Acknowledge your emotions,
Yeah, acknowledge.
anything repressed,
Yeah,
right? That's what the water's about, emotions, the cup.
and how the web,
So,
it's all connected. I like that too.
yeah. And it's
Reminds me
like
of like
blues
agape.
and reds and greens. So, yeah,
Good card for
interesting card.
this episode.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I guess we could talk a little bit just about the law of one before we get into the introduction. Maybe like just what channel the work is, kind of go over through that maybe, and then bring it up, or would you want to just go to the?
I was I'll just say that we had started and I mean, we had started talking about the law of one back in episode 20 and that was I don't know how long ago that was. Maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. Um and after that we didn't I mean, we would bring it up here and there during our shows, but we didn't any really in-depth episodes on it. We kind of touched on it on episode 20, like what it's about and what we were thinking about it. It was like brand new to us, like we hadn't heard about it before, so we were kind of like just soaking it all in a little bit, as if we could say it that way. But we had only looked at it through the lens of Aaron Abke and his playlist that he put together, um, of his kind of like breakdown of it. So it was helpful to me. That's like helpful to have like a summary and overview, like a background before I get into something. I don't like getting into something cold because I don't know what I'm getting into. And I like to have some kind of idea. Um, so it was helpful to have his intro videos. I didn't watch his whole playlist, but I got far enough that I was, comfortable enough to know like kind of what the law one was about. And only recently, when we did the Bigfoot episode, which was episode 104, I had come up with this thought to kind of look up Bigfoot in the Law of One, because I didn't know if, like, I was like, well, what if they talk about it? That would be interesting. So I did, and I found that there was a few mentions. So I had to I had to share it with Brandon, and I was like, maybe we can do a show on this. And he's like, absolutely. So that was episode one. So from episode 20 to episode 104, that was a long time coming, but we would like to maybe read through um, some fundamental ideas from the Law of One material that this man, Toby Wheelock, put together on his website. And we can read through that. And then if we still have time, we can read through a little bit of the Law of One that he like puts references in there, so we can read through some of those too. But yeah, this is maybe going to become a series of topics that we can bring up. We can ask the Law of One. Not we ask, but we can query, we can do a search and see if the Law of One discusses some of the topics that are kind of interesting, and then we can read about it and read through them through an episode. So
Did we search to look and see if it had anything about like cataclysms or anything like that?
no, I haven't, but I can write that down. I keep like a notebook of like what we can ask the Law of One.
Yeah, we could like cataclysms, comets, asteroids,
Resets.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and what I wanted to say really just a little bit was it's just about channeled material. Now we have talked about the Law of One a bunch on this podcast or the show. Here and there we'll reference it because it fits into our worldview, the way that the consciousness raises and the densities, and we'll get into all of that. But what I wanted to say is the way we look at this channeled material, we don't know if these people that channeled this in the 80s when they talked to this entity Ra, like we don't know them. Obviously, we never met them. We don't really know who or what they were in contact with. We just kind of look at it as it's the source, or it's some kind of subconscious way that even an artist, or like you could think of like paint artist, or even like a musical artist, or movies, or whatever, the way that they
They
subconscious,
channel stuff. Like, how
yeah,
does
they
somebody
channel
write a
stuff.
song?
Yeah.
Like, I have never been one to be able to write a song or write lyrics or anything. I can't say that I've like sat there and tried to, but some people don't have to try. Like, it just comes to them. Like, my father wrote songs, my mom wrote songs, my eldest sister wrote songs, but I've never been one to like write a song. So it's a thing that people just some people have that thing where they can get some kind of uh inspiration, right? And some people get it and some people don't, and it's okay. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. You're 100% right though. I feel like it's like channeled a lot of this. So this is how we look at this too. It looks like these people set this intention. They did some kind of ritual to summon this entity, and they were all on board and believing in it. So I feel like truth can come out that way. And it's up to the person now who takes this information. It's up to them to sift through it and use their own quadrivium, right? Their own trivium. I'm sorry, their own trivium process to go through the data and see what makes sense to them. And that's what we do, and that's what we're going to be doing here too, because there's a lot of different, I'll say, tenets of the Law of One that I like the way that and we'll get into all this, but I'm teasing a little bit. But there's a way to basically beat the game of life or whatever to ascend to the next level, but you could do it in a negative or a positive way, and there's no judgment there with it. So it's something we talk about all the time. We really like, but if you watch this episode, then you'll get a way deeper understanding of what we're talking about. So we're going to break it all down. But that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and we're not experts on the Law of One. This is us diving into the law of one with you. So it's, you know, we're not claiming that we're experts on any of this stuff.
Nope. We're Matt, what's that? How do you say it? Jack of all trades,
Yeah, yeah,
master of a few.
yes.
And before we jump in, let's just check the chat, and we're gonna let you guys know in the chat that going forward, I think we're gonna just sporadically check the chat and interact with you guys, because then we could pay attention to each other more, and we think that it'll we've noticed it'll go better. But we're gonna rely more a little bit on our mods there. If anybody's like acting up, to just mute or kick them up. But we really never have. I mean, we have that happen like once a year or something, maybe. So just let you guys know, we're not going to be on top of that as much, or we might not interact with you until certain points. So don't despair. We will read through, which I'm going to do right now. What's up, Joe? What's up, Blue Kachina? Joe P and Joe Giuseppe are here. What's up,
And
Cody?
Max is in here too. Thanks, Max.
Oh yeah, Max. What's up? Trying to wake
And
everyone up
and
is some
Cody
2012 truther.
somewhere.
Yeah, the Mayans, bro. All right. Well, you said you would like me to share the screen, right? For this.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Just gonna make some adjustments here so I can see it better. There we go. All right. So how did you want to go through and read this?
So, I mean, we can just alternate if you want, or,
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good.
did you want to start or did you want me to start?
Oh no, I could start. That's perfect. So, some fundamental ideas from the Law of One Material by Toby Wheelock. Last updated. Tony, what happened to Toby? It was last updated and right before
Oh
everything.
no. Oh no.
Toby.
Right
Uh,
before 311
that's pretty. In 2-7, that's my
days.
backwards born
Oh,
too. As well.
yeah.
Crazy. All right. Well, let's see. So, really, when you deal with the law of one, the person that they're talking to is Ra. So I guess that's what this mentions. I'm just going to go through and read it though. The one infinite creator. The law of one states that there is only one, and that one is the infinite creator. Oops. Which Ra also calls infinite intelligence and infinite infinity. It is impossible to
Intelligent.
describe. What's that? I'm sorry. Yeah,
Intelligent.
infinite
Sorry.
intelligence and intelligent infinity, not infinite infinity. Intelligent infinity. It is impossible to describe the one undifferentiated, intelligent infinity, unpolarized, full and whole. That's a quote, but it can be activated or potentiated. Each portion of the creation contains paradoxically the whole.
That
And
makes me think of
yeah,
what is it called when
as
it's
above, so below.
yeah, but the you're my only hope.
Obi-Wan,
Yeah, but
Star Wars.
what is the thing that she's in? She's a
Oh, hologram.
holographic.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
hologram.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot the word. It
No, I
makes me
like
think of a
that. That's a
hologram.
funny way to.
That's the only thing I could think of. How do I explain it? Obi-Wan, you're my only hope.
You know that crazy Darth Vader's daughter, when he's chasing her, but he doesn't know it's his dad. No, anyway, yeah. So yeah, it does. It reminds me of the hologram, right? Because or like DNA, they say like the strand of DNA, and then what really is DNA? Is DNA just some kind of physical representation of the markings of a hologram or something? Like I don't
Who
know.
knows? Yeah,
All I know is that I'm gonna keep reading.
yeah.
Let's see here. Share it up. Okay. Illusion. All right. So here we go. Illusion. Since all is one manifestation or appearance of manyness is an illusion. Oh, wait, let me read that again. Since all is
Read
one.
again.
Yeah, yeah. Since all is one, all manifestation or appearance of manyness is an illusion. According to Ra, it is an illusion carefully engineered in order to give the creator the opportunity to know itself. Interesting. See, you know what I like about this? And there's a lot of different reflections and pieces of other belief systems, or you could say religions in here, which I really like. And that could be because they really did contact some entity named Ra, or it could be because they, in their subconscious, this is all the stuff that jive to them and they just hit some ultimate truth. And this is their best way to express it, right? And some people express it by writing a book. That's what I was going to say before when you're talking about channeling. It felt like that when I was writing a book. I had all these ideas and all these things I had studied and looked into. And then also I talked about my past and the way it just came out. It was in this form and I wasn't even really thinking about it, but I was like, oh yes, this, and it was just like I was connecting dots and getting it out there. So I have some experience, I guess, with that stuff, but here we go.
Yeah.
All
But yeah,
right.
the creator experiencing itself or knowing itself.
Yeah. We've heard that before, right? It's a common
Well,
theme.
it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does make sense. Distortion, in Ra's terms, distortion is anything that moves away from undistorted unity. This can be either what we would consider good, distortion toward love, or bad, distortion toward ill health. There are three fundamental distortions of infinite intelligence. You want
And
to
this
take over
word
here?
distortion can sound sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
confusing. So I know that when I was reading it was a little bit confusing for me. So yeah, we'll read and we'll see as we go along what what it kind of implies. Distortion. And
Distortion.
just FYI, like you can see that he's talking about, you know, distortion toward good or distortion toward bad, right? We talk about this whole concept of like quote good and evil. Um,
Yeah. And we like to look at it like negative and positive, right? Like
yeah,
polarity.
polarities and not as a bad quote bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. We're not telling you how to live. All
And
right.
so just quickly he says, you know what, Brandon, it's kind of harder to see sometimes because of the highlights I've already done. I
Yeah,
wonder
I think
if
you're right. I'll just do the I could just do the
yeah,
there
something
you
like
go.
that. So this says that there's three fundamental distortions. So that means there are more, but these are kind of three of the main ones or the top three. Kind of like the top over Sharon tenets. Just kidding. All right. Should I read?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Free will, the first distortion. The first distortion is free will or finity or the limit of the viewpoint. The
So
created universe that we experience is the creator's exploration of itself through the first distortion, which Ra also calls the law of confusion. Interesting that he would call free will the law of confusion. Interesting.
yeah.
Ra defines free will as the recognition, quote, that the creator will know itself, end quote. Wow. Yeah. Well, we've
That
talked about this before, but go ahead.
that's super interesting because it really, there's a lot of things I want to say, but the first thing that I'll say is that it reminds me of people with the debate of like, is there free will or is there no free will? Is it all determined or is there free will? And it's like, well, this kind of speaks to that because we always say we feel like there is a deterministic element to it and there is a free will element to it, but there's some kind of consciousness or being, call it a deity, whatever, that already knows everything that's already happened. But we're pieces of that have no idea what's going to happen, or we really have no idea what did happen, probably. But I like that though because how I talk about, we talk about this as a spiritual realm and we're just energy experiencing this physical realm. We're having this physical experience. And this really plays to that because it's like when we're in this density, which we'll get to too, this is the density where we get to experience free will. And after this density, there is no free will. We just go back to being energy, I guess, or knowing we're energy. We go back to the knowledge that we're energy and we're not a physical being anymore. So I really like that. And also the idea that you might not even have free will if you haven't raised your consciousness to a certain level. You might just be kind of running off of programming, and it's just an illusion of free will. You just kind of go along with the flow of where you're at in that vibration. But I guess
Yeah.
that said also for other people, they're just kind of, even people who are higher up, they're just going along with the vibration. But I feel like the distinction is, though, and we talk about how free will really is just the choice. The raw essence of free will is like the choice to decide how you're going to feel when something happens to you, like how you're going to internally feel. And that is really what affects your whole vibration and everything, and your level of consciousness, I would say.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't watched the link that I put in last week's episode 108, I linked in reference to a video by After School, a YouTube channel After School. And that girl, Sarah, from the YouTube channel The Alchemist, does a very interesting breakdown. I think I can't remember if it's like 20, 30 minutes. Maybe it's not that long, but she basically explains how it's kind of like what the Bashar thing we talked about too, which I mentioned as well. And I linked in that description as well. But you're kind of in a splitting of consciousness or like in a different reality tunnel, right? Remember we were talking about that. Um, and she talks about how you can view, or at least this is my interpretation. I don't remember her exact words, but you can view the whole like fate and determinism and stuff like that as the lines in a coloring book. Like the lines are there, they're kind of there, but the free will part is the crayons. Now, will you choose to use a blue one or a green one for somebody's hair color? I'm just in a coloring book, guys. um, or will you choose to color outside the lines, like Amberson, one of our live chat ladies who usually shows up, mentioned? It's up to you, right? You choose, but this kind of there is still a level of like kind of a framework that you're working with in this, but you still have a free will to do to do things within that framework. um so anyway, I thought that was helpful to explain that, because some people are like, well, is it deterministic, or are you saying there's no such thing as free will? No, I'm not saying that at all. Clearly we have free will, or else I wouldn't have a show because I choose to do this show, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people get so existential when it comes to free will because a lot of people that say we don't have free will, they'll just say that we're running off of a program. Basically, we're kind of running off of cause and effect. And the lovely Joe P, who's been on our show, and we've talked about a lot of Myers-Briggs stuff with him recently, he breaks it down in a way where the realm is kind of like we're iron filings and caught in a magnetic field. And if the field shifts, then we shift. And I think what we can do as iron filings is work on ourselves, and we could turn ourselves into, you know, iron is like attracted by something and it like will levitate at this level. Think of like alchemy, maybe turn into gold or something else, even though I don't think gold's magnetic. I do that. But same thing though, it's we're just in a field. So if we can change the way that we see the world and change our worldview and how we're affected by things that go on outside of us, then we will be at a different vibration. So we'll get to a different frequency or level. And it goes back to what Bashar was saying with these reality tunnels. You might still be able to see people and interact and talk to them, but you're in a totally different world. If you go to the store, you could just see people who are in a different world. They have their faces covered, and some of them look scared out of their mind. And we're in 2024 right now. And some other people are walking through the store just singing and having a good time and dancing and getting good deals. That's me. In a magical place with endless possibilities. And other people are in a place where they're a literal slave to their own mind, but they're just locked into this thing and they're just going along running off programming. And it really comes down to like the idea of karma. That whole thing, you're kind of just running off of all that inertia that's been built up before.
Way woo way. Doing, not
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. That's the way we way, and you're
Yeah.
not.
And not making waves, right? Like
Yeah,
you drop a rock in the water and it makes waves. But anyway, we're getting we should probably get back to the
we're oversharing here. Okay. All right. So that's free will. Well, free will does this deserve a lot of talk. So
Yes.
the logos. You want to read that part?
Sure. All right, a lot of people pronounce this word differently. I'm just going to say logos. The logos, the second distortion. The second distortion is love, or the logos, or the creative principle. It is, quote, the focus, the choice of attack, the type of energy of an extremely, shall we say, high order, which causes intelligent energy to be formed from the potential of intelligent infinity in just such and such a way, end quote. A logos can create a single star system or it can create a galaxy with billions of star systems. Now, I said galaxy, so don't freak out. We'll talk about that in a second. Each galaxy has its own system of natural laws. I would say if you're going to think of what this means, just think of the word realm, maybe. Each realm, maybe. Just use a different word, maybe if that trips you up. Has its own system of natural laws, and I believe its own, quote, cosmic mind, end quote. Ross says that some of its members have wandered to the creations of other logoi, and that the, quote, experience has been one which staggers the intellectual and intuitive capacities, end quote. In the case of galactic systems, the first physical manifestation of a logos is a cluster of central systems. All right. Let's do you want to talk about that?
Interesting. Yeah. So it kind of it
I
also go ahead if you have something.
I was just gonna say, like, you know, I grew up in church, right? So my logos word comes from very like biblical things, but even still, I never really understood what logos meant. And to be honest, it's not like I really ever looked it up, but I just think of in the beginning was the logos. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God, right? That's what the logos is being translated as, the word. So to me, logos was always the word. But the word, it says this, like it's the creative principle or the logos or love. So could it be they're all synonymous? The creative
Like
principle
fire,
is, yeah, when you, okay,
like the element of fire, right?
could be. Um, so love equals creative principle equals logos. And I would say probably maybe equals the word, because when you speak words, you create, right? We create our reality, so to speak.
so to speak.
So
Yeah, that's
that's
I like the way you put that
my
in it.
thoughts. So you go ahead.
I'm just looking at it again. I was thinking that it reminds me it's like free will is the foundation, and then the next distortion, which is logos, is the way you choose. It's like a thing you could choose to create through.
Mm, okay.
I guess you're creating either way. So even love could be like a negative. This is probably more of the connective love, like the agape kind of love, maybe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As we keep reading though, it gets a little bit more
Yeah, let's keep reading.
deep, and I kind of want to understand. Not that I will, but maybe we can chat about it.
Gotcha. All right. The third, I'll read this one. Light, the third distortion. The third distortion is light. It is the first manifestation visible to the eye. Light is intelligent, full of energy, and the building block of what we call matter.
Mm.
Light's characteristics include the infinite whole paradoxically described by the straight line. Ra says that this paradox is responsible for the shape of the various physical illusion entities you call solar systems, galaxies, and planets, all revolving and tending towards the lenticular.
Mm-hmm.
Light energy has an upward spiraling characteristic which impels evolution. Aha. So there we go again. Everything is made out of light. What is in a hologram? Everything is made out of light.
Energy and motion,
Mm,
light.
I like that. All right.
Um,
Do you have anything you want to?
yeah, first manifestation visible to the eye. It's intelligent, full of energy, building block of matter. Yeah. Like you said, it's a hologram. Like light's characteristics include the infinite whole, paradoxically described by the straight line.
And I
Mm,
also like probably my favorite here. I'm gonna bring it back up because
yeah.
this kind of this is what oh reconciles. That's the word. This reconciles how you could feel. If you're not, if you're a ball earther, a flat earther, if you're a simulation guy. Um, Here we go. The infinite whole paradoxically described by the straight line. Ross says that this paradox is responsible for the shape of the various physical illusion entities you call solar systems, galaxies, and planets, all revolving, so
Dude, I exactly. When
physical
I read that,
illusion
I was like, see?
entities. Yeah, so that's why we say this is a realm and we're not really sure. And again, you could take it with a grain of salt. You could be like, these guys were just on drugs. But I think it's cool that it does mention that, so it does fit inside.
Right. And he says, illusion and physical illusion entities you call them solar systems, galaxies, and planets. He's just using your terminology to explain something to you. So he's not saying these galaxies exist as we think, or as mainstream tells us they do. He's just saying these are your terms. I'm just using these terms because this is what you you know and understand. But can you imagine him can you imagine Raw explaining everything, like he probably doesn't have the words because we don't have the words.
Yeah, it'd be like the scene in the Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna asked Krishna to show him his true form, and then Krishna just turns into God or whatever, and Arjuna's like, "All right, it's enough." He's like, "I can't deal with it." It's exactly what's going on there. But Ra communicates in such a way where they can understand. Well, they could try to understand, but they're not going to be blown away. All right, let's go back to this. So, sublogi Our galaxy was created by a single logos, and our sun is a sublogos of that logos. A sublogos individualizes or differentiates the natural laws set up by its logos. It also refines the cosmic mind into its specific archetypal mind, informed by the experience of earlier sublogi. And then I'll
Oh,
just read the sublogi, and then we
okay.
could. And then humans are an example of sublogi. So if you're going to say something, go ahead.
I
No.
was just it it makes me think of, okay, so you have this one infinite creator, right? They're saying that this logos isn't even the creator. This is like another aspect, a sub aspect of the creator. And then we are sub aspects of that. So it's like our realm that we're experiencing is just one uh creation of one of the logos, one of the logoi. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Logoi, whatever.
Logoi.
Can we look up how to pronounce that? Oh my God, I better say it right.
That's funny.
Logos.
So while you do that, I could say it also reminds me kind of the Russian doll thing, where
Yes.
everything is, it's you got the universe, and you got a galaxy, and you got a solar system, and you got a planet, and you got a person, and then you have molecules and atoms and electrons. Like, it just keeps going up and down both ways, and we're just at this level right now. Um, this is our chance to experience individuality and to see what we do with it, right? It's kind of like when they say that whole thing about, like, if you give somebody like the true test of characters to give somebody power and see how they act. Well, that's really what it is. We're all developing our character here. This is like a playground, if you will, where we're just developing all our characters. And if we die or if something happens, and I mean, it seems to me that we just either get reincarnated or back to source and come back out to, maybe it's not even our individual, maybe that's ego, but maybe whatever piece of that pie that we are, we get to experience another go around in this realm or something like that. So it really is cool because it kind of alleviates the fear thing. A lot of people have this fear of death and the unknown. We talked about, I think it was on the show last week where I talked about, or a week or two ago, about Tolkien and the men. And when the men died, because they had all this fear, they started to get a fear of death and all this stuff. But originally, death was a gift. So I would say, because looking at how everything is really inverted in the world or in society, in the mainstream, everything's inverted. That's where you get this fear of death. So, I mean, maybe it's a really good thing. Maybe after you die, it's like a party. There's people celebrating. You're like, oh, wasn't that crazy? All right, you want to go back in, or you want to take some time, But anyway, I feel like I'm just scatting now.
All right.
So,
So logos can be pronounced either logos or logos. Okay. But
okay.
logoi is pronounced logoi.
Logo and high goy.
Yeah. So there you have it. But what I guess what I was gonna say is it reminds me of the concept of, I think I think they're in extra biblical texts actually, where, and maybe there's like a vestige of it in the Bible, but where God, allegedly God, like chooses X many, like 72 nation, 72 whatever angels, I don't know, over nations. Like
Virgins?
one,
No,
huh?
because
Oh no, no, no. I
that's
can't
yeah.
remember how many. I think it was
I know.
something like, it was something like that. X number of for each country. But and then they have kind of like a, you know, rulership or kind of like control over what happens in that. So that made me think of that. And it's like, yeah, God allows this like sub logo, these sub logoi to have, uh I don't know, they can oversee the creation of their own realms. And then that realm looks like or behaves in a way that that sublogoi behaves, or whatever sublogos behaves. That's what this makes me, I don't know, think of. That's what comes to mind for me.
Yeah, and if you look at it in the through the lens of electricity, you could just, or even resonance, you could just say that these certain logoi or whatever, they resonate one way, and that's why certain energy or beings or people or whatever incarnate in those realms, because that's the level that they're at. That's the work they need to go through to get to the next. So if it was just energy going through a cycle, it's just like the next cycle that it has to go through. But in this particular part of the cycle, we it looks like it's physical to us, so we forget all that stuff.
Yeah. It's there's a lot. I don't understand it. I don't even know if this is right, but like I'm reading through it and just gonna try to make sense of it and see what
Yeah,
comes up.
yeah. I think between the two of us, we'll come up with something pretty good. All right, so I think we have that covered. Let's talk about the densities, because you could start off if you want reading.
Okay.
This part's really interesting.
All right. Densities. The creation has 7 levels or densities. The eighth density forming the first density of the next octave of experience, just as the eighth note of a musical scale begins a new octave. Between seventh and eighth densities, the creation re-emerges in a period of timeless, formless unity with the creator. It is Ra's understanding that, quote, the ways of the octave are without time. That is, there are 7 densities in each creation infinitely, end quote. They point out, though, that the limits of their knowledge are narrow, and that is Ra's knowledge of things. They don't know everything, but they know a great amount, apparently.
They know more than we do, apparently.
Yeah.
This might be a good time to check the chat. Leave people hanging on a note before we get into the densities. What's going on, chat? How's everybody? Thank you, Sharon. Hope all is well. We read that. Okay. Ace Ashling. I think that's how you say that, right? Such sweet memories. Carla and David did a personal reading for Bob years ago. Carla is so sweet. Her tagline was a small, medium, at large. Nice. Morning, Skydome. Hey, everyone. Hope you're all having a great day. You too. You are the field. You change the field, and the iron filings take care of themselves. Yes, there we go. That's kind of what I was trying to say. Joe gets it. What's up, Sherry? Oh, well, sometimes we witness other toxicities without warning, shocking to both the incident and reaction. Yes. Great talk, guys. Thank you, E. All right. This. Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Sounds like everyone's behaving. We're not gonna get Dairy Queen, you guys. No. Don't make me stop this car. All right, let's get into the densities, because this part is really cool. So, it says up here about the 7. So it's just like music. So the first density is kind of just a repeating of a piece of it. So it's like the as above, so below, where each piece contains the piece of the next one, as you're going up in levels. I'm really thinking of like video games here. Like that's kind of what are like levels on video games.
And fractals too.
Yeah, fractals. All right, I'll read this part then. First density is the density of awareness, in which the planet moves out of the timeless state into physical manifestation. Now, that word planet, you can always plain T. So our realm moves out of timeless state into physical manifestation. And I think timeless state is when you are pure energy and you know it. There is no time, right? That's what they mean by timeless. Not that it's around for, I mean, it could be around forever or whatever, but I think here it's quite literal, like no time, timeless. Um, its elements are earth, air, water, and fire. On Earth, after matter has coalesced and space-time has begun to unroll its scroll of livingness, first density took about 2 billion years. All right. You want to read the second density?
Yeah, that I guess pertains to this particular realm that we call
Yeah.
Earth, where um we have earth, air, water, fire, and then space time began to unroll its scroll of livingness, let's see, which took 2 billion years. So, you know, it took us 2 billion years to be earth, air, water, and fire and just experience that, I guess. All right, second density is the density of growth in which what we call by what we call biological life emerges and evolves into greater and greater complexity. Second density on Earth took about 4.6 billion years. So that's the animals and plants, right? All right. Third density is the density of self awareness and the first density of consciousness of the spirit. It is the quote, axis upon which the creation turns, end quote. Because in it, entities choose the way, either service to others or service to self, in which they will further their evolution toward the creator. Their density is much shorter than the other densities, taking only 75,000 years. And if we think about the 75,000 years, um, I don't know, it kind of makes me think of um that whole the Ewar stuff and the what's that guy's Cosmos vibes of the Cosmos or whatever channel, where he shows the moon and like the reflection, and then like you look at that as part of, let's say if it were a whole realm, and like it's moving around the astrological uh great year, shall we say. So a great year is about 25 to 26,000 years. And so three of those is 75,000 years. So it makes me think of that. I don't know if that relates or anything, but that's what I thought of.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to add too is when they say years and days and how long it's been, we also have to remember that the people that were channeling this had more of a mainstream view on the creation of this realm or the planet or whatever you want to call it. So who really knows what Ra means by time? Because, you know, allegedly Ra's a being that doesn't even perceive time.
Mm.
So things could have got lost in the translation. Who even knows? So I mean, I this thing all started yesterday, from what I understand. So it started yesterday and it'll be over tomorrow. So guess what? Enjoy today. And that's
Mm-hmm.
true for any day that anyone's listening to this.
Enjoy the present moment.
Enjoy the moment. That's right. Carpe diem. Unless it's the night, and then you could carpe noctem. That was the name of the book. All right. So third density, that's the density we're in now, allegedly. All right. So fourth density, I'll read this one, is the density of love or understanding. Those who have successfully chosen a path come together with others of like mind in what Ra calls a social memory complex. In order to pursue that path, either loving self or loving others, fourth density lasts approximately 30 million years. Fourth density lifespans are approximately 90,000 years. Interesting.
So people reincarnate for 30 million years, but their lifespans are 90,000 years in fourth density. If
But
that's even
interestingly, they don't say the
fathomable.
lifespan of humans in third density, right?
Hmm?
They don't mention the
They
lifespan of
no,
humans in the third
no,
density because
no.
that would be probably too exact. What if it was like 5 minutes, or what if it was like 1,000 years? And then you're like, wait a minute, then what's a year? What do they mean? Are they talking
Yeah.
about days, not years? Like could be possible. All right. but again, stuff like that, I don't think is really that important. Just like what I said today, right? That's what matters is today, the present moment. And this is just to kind of get an idea or background. So I think it's not really worth it to get tripped up on the amount of years and all that stuff. It's more about having kind of a better understanding of who you are yourself. All right. Fifth density is the density of light or wisdom. Lessons are often learned individually rather than as a social memory complex. Fifth density entities are beautiful by our standards because they can consciously shape their physical forms.
Wow.
I like this because three is an uneven number. We're in three now. Four, everyone comes together. And then five, it's like uneven again. So you get like this a little bit of turmoil again or whatever it is. But
Separation or whatever.
yeah, maybe some chaos or something. Yeah, separation. But I like that because it's like constantly expanding and retracting and expand every time it does it's changing. The consciousness changes.
Interesting that he says fifth density entities are beautiful by our standards. And I'm assuming it means raw, by raw standards, because they can consciously shape their physical forms. And raw is a sixth density con- complex or social memory complex. So,
Is that a quote? Let me see. Uh it might be he might this might be the author saying our standards as in humanity
oh,
because
okay.
not a
Okay.
quote.
I the first time I read it, that's what I understood. But this time, for some reason, it made me think of raw. So, yeah, no, you're
Oh, it
probably
could be,
right.
yeah, totally. I was just gonna make a joke about Ra. It's like Ra's really picky. He's like, I only date tens. Got to be in that fifth density so you can fix your whole thing. It's funny because this also reminds me. I'll quickly the Dune story. There's a character in the early books that transcends all this stuff, and then she's able to choose her own physical form. Norma Sengba. She's like short and
Oh,
ugly and all this stuff. She's a genius. Yeah, it's really interesting,
oh,
and it
wow.
reminds me of the Matrix too, right? When you're in the Matrix in the movie The Matrix, when those people are in there, they look as they look to other people and to themselves how they project themselves in the Matrix. Like that's how they look, and that kind of is like, is that how this works here too? Like
Mm.
you imagine yourself getting older. Are you gonna start to look older? Is that what it is? You know how they say married people start to look like each other after a while? Did you
Oh,
ever hear that
that's
before?
funny. Yeah.
I was thinking about this yesterday. I wonder if that's what it is. If they actually, because they're looking at the other person so much, they shift to be more like them subconsciously.
Yeah.
All interesting
And
things.
and the other thing that you mentioned, it's like when people continue to say, "Oh, I'm getting old," or XYZ, like I don't say those things. I because I don't imagine myself. I don't imagine that for myself. Like, you know what I mean? Um, I'm
I
not
just say
trying to
it
sound
backwards.
arrogant or anything, but I
Yeah.
don't, you know what I mean? I don't want to identify with like being old and decrepit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if all starts in the mind and all is mind, and we are just pieces of a creator, that means we
Yeah.
do have limited powers of creation in our own lives. So you could create your own physical form. I mean, you got to be careful, right? Of how you view yourself. It's so because look at me. I keep telling people like I met some new people yesterday. I was at a family function for Elizabeth. Her It's like her great aunt was turning 99 and she lives in a living assisted facility. It's beautiful. This place she lives. I was like, can I move in here? It was great. There's like
You're like,
cat.
I identify as a very healthy 99-year-old
Yeah, yeah. They're
and
like, you better
youthful.
identify as somebody who's got more money though, because this is, um I identify as Elon
You
Musk.
better. I'm just kidding.
But I was talking to some people there, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm 47." I was telling my age. I'm like, "Hey, I think I'm just aging backwards." I'm like, "I really think it's just how you feel."
Yeah.
I can't explain it. I look younger now than I used to, so I think that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Eh, let's get back.
Something
Oh
I
no,
wanted to say about fourth density, if you want to bring it up or not.
yeah,
A very healthy 99-year-old Joe.
that's right.
Um, So in fourth density, it talks about those who've successfully chosen a path come together with others of like mind in what Ra calls a social memory complex. I remember talking about this at some point where it was like, well, do those who polarize negative, can they even be part of a social memory complex? I remember you saying something like, no, because they're, or even maybe Aaron Abke said something, but like they are so, they polarize towards self so much that they can't really be in unison or in unity with like another group because they're so, but at the same time, you know, I don't know, sometimes that happens, you know, you got cult leaders and then you have the followers, right? And some of those followers could be cult leaders in the making themselves because they're attracted to that narcissistic energy and they kind of want to maybe embody it themselves and maybe they worship that because they want to be that. um so I don't know it, I don't know what, how to, you know, think about that, but this is basically saying that yeah, they do come together with others of like mind. I mean, is that only for the those who are positively polarized?
No, it's a good question. Maybe we could figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
Huh. I'm trying to remember what they said. I can't exactly remember. Either
Thanks,
one would
Jim.
make sense though. Hmm. Um, all right, so we read fifth density. So you want to read
Sure.
sixth?
Sixth density is the density of unity, in which love and wisdom are blended together. So in the fifth density above, it said it's the density of light or wisdom. In this density, they blend. The two
Well,
paths
maybe they
reunite.
skip one of the densities. Maybe if
No,
it's negative, it goes right to the fifth. Isn't that what it was? Maybe doesn't
I
that
don't
sound
think they
familiar?
skip. I don't think they can skip it. I just I don't remember to be honest,
All right, well,
but
sure,
it
we'll.
says those who have successfully chosen a path. If it was just because it's one or the other, if it was
Yeah,
just service to others, then he would have said those with service to others come
would go.
together and
Yeah,
those
yeah.
with service to self skip. And they don't skip. I don't remember them skipping.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking something else.
Yeah, they just choose to do the green ray or love, which is the point of fourth density. Um, they choose to quote love, but for themselves first and only.
That's what it is. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Um, all right. So sixth density, love and wisdom are blend together. The two paths reunite as those on the service to self path. Here we go. This is the very important info here. All right. So the two paths reunite, and we're talking about service to self versus service to others. The two paths reunite as those on the service to self path, realizing that they cannot successfully master the lessons of unity without opening their hearts to others, switch their polarity to positive. So it happens in sixth density. Wow, I didn't realize that until I read this. Um, Ra is sixth density. Their sixth density cycle is 75 million years. Interesting. So it's maybe, I don't know exactly when these people on service to self will switch. I don't know if it happens right away at the beginning of sixth or if it happens some part way through sixth, but I just wonder how these service to self entities, um I guess it's in fifth density because in fifth density they separate again,
Oh
right? In
yeah,
fifth
yeah.
density, they separate and they're trying to learn light or wisdom. And maybe that's when, I don't know. I still don't really understand what, like, quote, demons and negative entities are, but maybe they're fifth density service to self people. Who knows? Anyway,
Anyway,
so that's sixth density.
Seventh density is the gateway density, in which we once again become one with all. It's a density of completion and the turning towards timelessness and foreverness.
Wow. So yeah, that's the last one. Eighth density is more like just kind of going back to the first one. Eighth density is also beginning of the first density of the next creation. So it's like fractal, right? There's so many levels upon levels. Um, it is, quote, both omega and alpha, the spiritual mass of the infinite universes, becoming one central sun or creator once again. Then is born a new universe, a new infinity, a new logos, which incorporates all that the creator has experienced of itself.
Interesting.
Wow. So to me, that sounds like wow. I don't know. Go ahead. You say something.
Well, I was going to say you could even look at this as the journey of like an individual, just kind of even in this realm going through. Maybe we go through it each time. It's the whole eight or the whole seven, then you get to eight and you go back to the beginning, you go through it again, you go through it again, until it's kind of, it reminds me of the way of an artist would work, like a sculptor. Somebody's like sculpting something, they just go over and over, drawing something. You have to go over different things again and again. I was thinking that, and then I was also thinking of so I does it get, because I don't want to get ahead of us. Let me see. We start talking about the two paths. Okay, yeah. So I'll save this for the two paths, but I will say that it's good to have compassion for people who are polarizing negatively, because if you think about it, you have to be 95% negative to go up. So there's a lot less people, but
We're
they're
going to
literally
do that.
taking the aspects of this realm, the aspects of consciousness that we just don't want to deal with, the people who are going to polarize to the positive. They're taking all those aspects on themselves, and they have to be so selfish in order to get it up to the next realm, because in this realm it can't reconcile. This realm is too polarizing. There's just good and evil or whatever it is, so it has to take that negativity up with it a couple realms up. So they're actually taking care of all that bullshit. They're working extra hard. All we have to do is polarize 50% or more positive. And, if and that, of course, that's
Service
really
to
hard work,
others.
right? Yeah, service to others. And it's really the hard work, because it reminds me what we talk about here, about working on yourself and just, living by the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have done to yourself, or not do unto others which you'd have done to yourself. But then also you have to use that love on yourself, because if you don't love yourself, how can you love others, right? So there is a really hard path that way. And so people who refuse to ultimately refuse, because so many people just flip, they'll get really bad and then flip, like me, for example, or not like I was really bad or whatever. But and then some
Yeah.
people,
You can only take so much and then you flip
yeah, and then you
positive.
flip, and so many people just there's a select group of people who could just take all this negativity on and then bring it up to the next level. So I mean, I have compassion for those people, because they're doing the stuff that we don't, when we couldn't handle it, we flip the other way, you know.
Mm-hmm. Good call.
So,
And then I also would add, which I've said many times before, but um they're going to polarize back to positive anyway. So it's not like I say quote, it doesn't matter a lot, but I don't mean that in a like a brushing it off sort of way. I mean it like in the end it evens out. In the end they
at the
come
end of the
back.
day,
At the end of the day, the prodigal son freaking returns home. You know, so it's like it's like worrying about them. Why worry about them? They're going to figure it out. They'll find their way. Something always has to happen one way or another. whether it's now, whether it's in another lifetime, whether it's another density, whatever, they're going to figure it out. It again, I heard this from Michael Tsarion. I don't know who he quoted, but evil contains within itself the seeds of its own destruction. So, like, why worry? Why worry about that? You know?
Why worry? Buy fake doors. What are you worried about? Buy fake doors. It's from Rick and Morty. Yeah, no, you said that perfectly. And that's again why we talk about the fear. Fear is the mind killer. It's just this cycle, right? So if you're worried about it, you have the fear, you worry, you make it a reality, you bring it into your existence. People are out there, they're so evil, they're terrible. You're focused on them, you're worried about them. What about you? What is it about their behavior that pisses them off? Does it remind you of something you do, maybe even a small way? Could that be it?
Right, right. Um,
Cool.
I'm reading a book about Carl Jung, and there's stuff in there that I had no idea about because I never looked him up or read anything about him, you know. So
How's it going?
it's an interesting read. I didn't know he had like a woman that named Antonia Wolf, who was like his confidant, but it was like a public thing. Like the wife knew about it, she knew about it. Like the wife was probably not super happy about it, but like she knew. And obviously because they all worked together. They were working on, in the same space and, working on the whatever psychology stuff they were doing together. So, but anyway, you hear something like that and immediately you want to be like, how dare he? You know what I mean? Like, how dare he do that to his wife? And it's like, well, that wasn't my life. Why am I judging him? Like, I don't know what he had to go through. I don't know what his I don't know about his wife or that woman. I don't know anything about them. It's not, you know, maybe he had to go through these things just to bring us some new information that he wouldn't have been able to know otherwise without going through these things, right? But
Maybe
anyway,
his
that's
wife liked it. Maybe she was just like, you know what? I love Carl Jung, but that's the thing. People, I think that's what this realm's all about: making those choices, living with them, dealing with them, getting to see the results of your actions, and then deciding whether you want to adjust your behavior or not. It's so unless it's directly affecting you, then it's like, well, just
yeah.
because
So
he had a crazy life doesn't mean he couldn't have figured things out. It reminds me of that
exactly.
meme where it was like people who read philosophy and it shows like these
Yeah,
cartoon figures, they're
yeah,
all fancy, and then philosophers and it's just this guy like all burnt out.
exactly. That's freaking Carl Jung. That's freaking Carl.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I definitely feel that energy, like, because I feel like I'm somewhere in between. I wouldn't call myself quite a philosopher yet, but it is like that. But I think there's another level of understanding that you get to where you're not so burnt out though. But it could be like that. It's so funny.
Yeah. So anyway, it was just an example of me encountering someone who was maybe doing something that I thought was like, oh, how dare he like quote cheat on his wife or whatever, right? And then I had to just be like, that's not you. That wasn't your choice. That's him. He did that. And you can't judge him because you don't know. Like, what if you experienced that in a past lifetime? You know, what if you were that woman or what if you were Carl Jung? Like, you don't know. Or in that situation, at least.
And what if he didn't cheat on his wife? He would have got hit by a bus because he wasn't out cheating on his wife. He was, and then we wouldn't have all his great work. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Let's check the chat though, real quick. Looks like some interesting stuff going on there. I had what's up, Josh? He said real fake doors because that goes along with the Rick and Morty thing. Brandon, I find myself quoting that fake door commercial a lot. It's so dumb, but it sticks. Yeah, it does. Elizabeth and I, we talk about that. Like, if she's kind of worried about something or whatever, I'm like, what are you worried about? Just buy fake doors. It basically is in Rick and Morty. They're watching this interdimensional cable, and it's just this commercial. This guy trying to sell fake doors, and then the commercial just goes on forever. It's really funny. But in it, he says, he's like, what are you worried about? Just buy fake doors. We got all kinds of fake doors. But I think it is a funny way to just remember when you're in fear or worried about something. But yes, thank
Mhm.
you. Let's see. Oh, I got to get going. See you later, Joe. Dinner is done. Great show. I shall catch the rest tomorrow. Yes. Enjoy the rest of your night and your food. Tell Sandra we said what's up. Looks like they were going pretty good here.
He also said earlier, he said, whoever is of the same vibration binds together and takes their position in the fields, negative, positive, in between, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it
Cool.
sounds familiar. I think they do become negative social complexes or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, they
But
probably do at some point.
I'm
There
sure we'll
has to be
find
some
out.
leader, though, usually, right? Like some cult leader or something.
Oh, Disson Jones did CGJ. Yeah, Carl Jung. I guess that's he had a mistress or whatever. Or what was it? A confidant.
Yeah, her name is Antonia Wolf. She was just another like business partner there, like in the space where I don't know what office or whatever, wherever they
Yeah,
worked.
yeah.
Like she was helping, his wife was helping. Um, they were just all doing the work of like the psychoanalysis, whatever the work that they were doing. And they all worked in the same office. And it was out in the open. He wasn't hiding it from anybody. Um, the children, I guess, and the wife didn't like it, but they couldn't really do anything about it. So I think at some point the wife just accepted it and was just like, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Because
hear.
with that woman, he was able to, like, it was almost like she understood him in such a way. There were things that he couldn't tell his wife because she didn't understand them or something. Like this woman understood and actually helped him dive into his own self, like all the things that he couldn't, that maybe repressed things or whatever. This is what I'm understanding because I'm just barely reading this book. And it's very high. This book is very like high level. It just tells you just like kind of some basics. It doesn't go in depth, but I think I looked her name up just to see more about her and found out a little bit more. And she was kind of instrumental in helping him. And we wouldn't really have the things that he wrote without that. So it
So
is.
you
I mean,
never
I
know.
didn't know that either. Dissident Joe says I didn't
Oh,
know either.
that's what I was gonna say. See, fellas, all you single fellas that are out there, people who look at this Carl Jung, he was looking into these ideas and probably working on himself, and he was irresistible to the ladies, to the
He's
right lady.
charming.
Yeah. That's what a real woman wants. They want a real man or a real man wants a real woman.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. So
I mean, I guess. I don't know. It's 2024. Who knows? I don't want to make claims. I don't want to make claims. Okay, so the harvest, right?
where
Or no?
were we? Oh,
Oh,
did we
the
read all of
path.
it?
We didn't read the two paths yet. Nope, we're right here.
Okay, but we read seventh and eighth density. I totally forgot.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we did.
C. All right, the two paths. Just as a magnet has two poles, the positive and the negative, so does consciousness. In consciousness, the poles are the paths of service to others and service to self. The goal of third density is to choose a path of service. In order to choose the positive path, at least 51% of our thoughts and actions must be dedicated to the service of others. For the negative path, we must be at least 95% self serving. Between the two lies the sinkhole of indifference. Most people are far along their path before they realize that they have made a choice. Just as it's impossible to judge the polarity of a magnet, so it is impossible and inappropriate to judge the polarity of another being.
Hmm.
Right? That's
Hmm. Right. Right.
huge.
So like even being like that, XYZ, he's so evil.
Doing his
How do you
job.
know? How do you know?
You we could, you know, he could simply just say, we're not here to choose other people's paths. We're here to choose our own
Oh, that's right.
path.
That's right.
And the other
Yeah.
people are there to help us, even if it looks like they're hurting us. You know, everyone could be a teaching or learning experience from no matter what happens, right?
Speaking of what you just said, in the book they're also talking about Freud and Jung, right? And the friendship that they established, which ended because Freud was so attached to being this father figure to Carl Jung that he he was became totally, I mean, I'm not going to say, I don't know, but it seems very narcissistic of him. And so it's like he was projecting onto Jung, like he was saying, like, oh, you must have father issues or father
Right.
figure issues or whatever. But he wanted to be his father figure. He wanted to be Carl Jung's father figure. It's like, are you projecting much, Freud?
That's funny. It's like he wanted
Anyway, it
them.
made me think of that. Who was like who was Freud to tell Jung what he needed to do in his life? Like, oh, you need to believe the way I do. You need to see the things that I do in psychology because your way's wrong and my way's right.
That's right. That sounds really familiar.
Oh my.
Sounds familiar, right? I mean,
But yeah. So
if they only knew
um
the long one, it would have been good. A harvest. Do you want to read this part?
yes, sure. The harvest. Densities last for predetermined lengths of time. At the end of the allotted time, there is a quote harvest, end quote, in which those who have learned the lessons of the density graduate to the following density. Those who have not learned the lessons repeat the density. The requirement for graduation from third density is having chosen a path of service, whether to self or to others. The 75,000 year time period for Earth's third density is at an end, according to Raw. The year 2011 was, quote, an appropriate, probable, possible time space nexus for harvest, end quote. However, Ra has difficulty calculating time and is not confident making predictions. Nonetheless, the quote cycles move as precisely as a clock strikes the hour. Thus, the gateway from intelligent energy to intelligent infinity opens regardless of circumstances on the striking of the hour, end quote. The quote possibility or probability vortices, end quote, indicate that the transition to fourth density will take from 100 to 700 years. However, this quote cannot be accurate due to the volatility of your peoples at this space time, end quote. The Earth will soon be a fourth density service to others' planet or plane, shall we say, or torus field or realm. But many of its future inhabitants may have to come from elsewhere because many Earth natives have not yet chosen a path of service. Once fourth density is fully underway, only first, second, and fourth density creatures will inhabit the, the plane, the place. Those current third density inhabitants of Earth who have not yet chosen a path will go to other third density places through the process of death here and reincarnation elsewhere. I don't know.
Mm,
I want to kind of read through that
yeah.
carefully. It's, wow.
That last part reminds me of resets and what we've talked about with if a lot of people aren't doing work or whatever, and that's what it seems like. People are just being stagnant, then some kind of reset comes and wipes everybody out. So maybe that's referring to like the great cycle or just like the reset of this realm, which you know, like Archaics kind of talks about, and 2178 or something.
Mm, yeah. I
I like
go
that.
ahead.
I was just gonna say I like the idea of first and second density things being here still. So that means there still is a realm and there's still like plants and animals and stuff, but then there's fourth density beings here. So I wonder if that process is even underway now. Like as far as people who are being reincarnated here, I wonder if they're already like getting set and ready for fourth density and people are exiting, might be going somewhere else. I don't know. It's an interesting.
Yeah, yeah, a good point. Like the other kind of meta or like thing that I'm trying to understand here is it says here densities last for predetermined lengths of time. Now remember earlier we were reading that there are multiple multiple logoi who are creating who have created multiple different realms of existence. So are these densities this kind of doing kind of the same kind of thing in those places and all, all at different times? Um, I don't know. That's where my head goes because they're talking about going to different ones if you did not make a choice this time for third density, if you still are somewhere in the middle between 96% and 50% of service to yourself and or others, then you have not made a choice and you have to repeat third density somewhere else. I guess because Earth will become a fourth density service to others location, shall I say. And then the weird part about many of its future inhabitants may have to come from elsewhere because many Earth natives have not yet chosen a path of service. So, wow, like in the 80s, there were still so many people who hadn't chosen a path. They were kind of ambivalent halfway. Like it reminds me of the quote in the Bible that says, "You are neither hot or cold, so I'll spit you out." Like
Yeah,
you're tepid or whatever. I think that's in the Book of Revelation.
yeah, that's exactly what it reminds me of. I like that.
Yeah, because it also, because we talk about a middle path and like stuff like that, right? And in this case, the middle path is not the necessarily the path you really want, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So like
yeah,
when we say stuff like that, we don't, you know, there's nuances to what we're talking about, dare I say.
yeah. It depends what path we're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else you wanted to say about that?
No, I think that's good on that part of it as far as the because we're just kind of laying down
Some basics.
yeah, some basics. That's it. Okay, let me bring this back up. Yeah. All right. How to be of service to others. The best way, let me just highlight that. The best way of service to others is the constant attempt to seek to share the love of the Creator as it is known to the inner self. This involves self knowledge and the ability to open the self to the other self without hesitation. This involves, shall we say, radiating that which is the essence or the heart of the mind body spirit complex.
Wow. This is like I highlighted the whole thing because
Yeah.
it's deep, it's profound, it's beautiful. Um this this involves self-knowledge. Know thyself. I
It's like we
mean,
said, you got to love yourself if you really want to love other people, because if you think of just service to self or service to others, and you're like, all right, I want to try to do service to others, and you're just on the surface, you might be out there trying to do everything for everyone else, and you could start to resent it. You can get mad at them because of it. and it could lead you into a worse situation, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's why I think this way, or looking at it this way is so important.
Yeah. And I think that's why Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. That basically shows you that you can't love others before you love yourself. You have to first know how to love yourself, and then you'll know how to love others. So you have to know yourself. To love yourself, you have to know yourself.
Yeah, know yourself. And if you think of it, the knowing principle, right, that we talk about, the word know means to like experience. So you have to experience these things with yourself, get to know yourself, how you work, how you move. This way, I feel like one of the keys to that, the self knowledge, is you start to accept how you are, and you don't get mad at yourself or hate yourself. You start to lose the self hate. And that's really what the self love is. It's just an exterminating of the self hatred that a lot of
Mhm.
us we end
Yes.
up with because of the way we're raised or whatever, right? So
Yes.
again, and
With
we talked about this much, it's not about being selfish and loving yourself and being no, it's about not hating yourself.
I that's thank you for saying that because that's like a big I don't know, it's just very helpful, I think, to say that. It like makes a lot of sense. Wow.
Yeah, when we're trying to explain to somebody, right, you try to I've come up with that before too, and I just thought of that now. So I think that's how I'm going to say it going forward. It's self-love isn't it's not like a it's not a selfish thing. It's just getting rid of that self-hate, because if you can get rid of that self-hate, and if you can accept yourself for all the things you do, even if there are things, you make a mistake or something, your habit you're trying to get rid of, if you still engage in that behavior and you're easier on yourself, you have compassion, and you can literally see the line of the things that led you there. And if you could start to cultivate that love for yourself or just extinguish that hate, I think then that hate goes away for other people, because you can also have compassion for them, and
Absolutely.
you could, you know, justified their situation in your own head. So you could be like, all right, this guy's a jerk because maybe his dad was a jerk and he was beat up as a kid and all this stuff. And then um, you could just have that inner compassion. And again, we say this all the time too. It doesn't mean that you let the person walk all over you and all this stuff. And compassion doesn't equal consent. So it's just the inner world we're talking about here. You don't feel like a victim because of this person's behavior or something they did towards you.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I love the exterminating the self-hate because, you know, I have to think about that for myself too, of the things that maybe I grew up with, whether my parents or the church I grew up in instilled in me these like thoughts that were not the best thoughts, you know? And then, oh, you can't, you know, be like this because XYZ. And so then you're like, oh, you have this self self-consciousness about it. And maybe there's some self-hate there, you know, but if you can see that, if you can learn to look at it and acknowledge it and realize where it's coming from and say, oh, okay, I got that because of, my parents or my, growing up in this kind of environment. This kind of thought process was instilled in me, but that's not true. I know that's not true. I can let it go. And I don't have to hate myself. I don't have to, because it's nothing wrong that I'm doing. I'm not an evil person. I'm not I'm not harming anyone, whatever it is, and you can learn to exterminate the self-hatred and learn to love yourself. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, see, that's the philosopher side of me.
Yeah.
And then the veil. All right, I'll let you read this one. This is a cool one though.
All right. The veil. Our logos wanted to give the creator the highest quality experience of itself possible. It and other logoi therefore carefully veiled the subconscious and deep minds from the conscious mind in third density. This precipitated a movement towards seeking and away from the condition of Edenic, which is like from Eden, Edenic contentment that existed in the creations of earlier logoi. The result of this experiment has been a more vivid, varied, and intense experience of the creator by the creator. And I remember hearing about this through Aaron Abke, talking about how when this was starting up, they didn't have the veil of forgetfulness. And so, of course, the experiences were going to just be like fine and dandy. Nothing was really happening, everything was just cool. But when you introduced the veil of forgetfulness, that's when you began to see these extremes, right? Because of the free will component. When you veil the when you put the veil of forgetfulness on, you come into this realm and you don't know jack squat. You don't know nothing from nothing. And you're just like a baby born. You rely on your parents for sustenance and everything. And you just, as you're going, you're learning all kinds of things, whether they're good for you or bad for you or whatever. You're just learning all kinds of things. You don't know jack squat, but you're still exercising your free will. Once you get to, of course, once you get to a point where you're crawling and walking and, doing all these things that you can do yourself, you're choosing, you're having that free will to choose what you're going to do. um, that's when the magic happened. The creator was able to experience something else, something different than just pure, just beauty and it, the Eden, shall we say. And that makes me think of the Garden of Eden, where quote the fall, right? I don't see it like I did when I was in church, in the Christian movement. Um, because I don't see it as a negative or bad thing. Um, the we have to fall to learn how to walk. You wouldn't call a baby stupid for trying to crawl over to you and stand up and then fall before he can walk. You don't call that baby stupid or ignorant or dumb, or you don't give a negative term to that. You just say, "Oh, he's learning to walk." Well, we're all learning to walk. Hello. And like Ram Dass says, we're all learning to walk each other home.
We're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
like that.
added the learn part. Sorry.
No, I like that. And it makes me think of it. I lost my thought because of that last thing. It was so cool, but it's all right. It'll come back to me.
Garden of
Oh,
Eden.
I remember I was going to say the veil. So it's like when people talk about the Kelly, the golden age, right?
Yeah.
It's the golden age. It was the golden age. Everything was great. I think that's what they're talking about, right? They're saying
Yes.
this is the
Yes.
golden age, but people weren't doing any work. And that's kind of reminds me of what's going on now because it's like the Tower of Babel. They're building this tower because they want to rival God. Well, could society be that same thing? We're trying to build this existence where people could just literally like get into the metaverse, right? And never even have to go outside and just have a life. So if you're always at this certain level of contentment, even though you might be suffering because of all these other things, but you have this level of contentment because you always have like food and shelter and like entertainment at your fingertips and all this stuff. Maybe it just becomes a lot harder for this process to go along. It's kind of like you get a flat tire, right? So say this process of the law of one is like a car driving and in third density, and then when anything happens like a golden age, for example, or artificial golden age, which people are trying to usher in, where there's all this contentment, it kind of screws up the process. And then something comes in to fix that. And so maybe that's what the resets are too. They just come in and reset everything and blow it all down and be like, all right, you guys got to start back from the sticks. And some people have technology still or whatever, but the large part of the human consciousness, like the collective consciousness, is either wiped out or has to start from like the Stone Age or whatever. But yeah, it's really interesting to think that could be
Yeah, yeah.
possible, and maybe that's why technology is so evil. Like Ted Kaczynski, Uncle Ted, the Unabomber, he was right. He's like, you don't realize it with this technology. He's like, you're gonna destroy everything. And maybe he didn't realize, even knew what he meant, but maybe just intuitionally he knew that it was bad, and it was gonna be the downfall of everyone. But I mean, what are you gonna do? It has to happen, right? It's like it was like trying to stop Jesus from being crucified, right? And that skit, the Mad TV skit that you sent, like
Stop killing Judas.
exactly. It's like, no, it's gotta happen. Like Judas has to sell me out. He was
Yeah.
the most important of all the apostles. It only happened because of Judas. Pour some out for Judas, everybody. Later, pour some out for him. Have
The
compassion.
ex-terminator.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's that, and then also the veil of forgetfulness helps because it explains. Because a lot of people are like, well, why can't we remember our past lives or the lessons we learned or whatever? But I think we still have some content. We have a piece of that. We have a connection of everything that had happened to us and before. We just don't have direct memory of it. So it's still in our consciousness, not
Consciousness.
in
Yeah.
our mind or our deep mind. So that's where I think the intuition comes in. We get this feeling of something and we're like, I don't know, or I want to do this. Maybe
Hmm.
it's because of lessons we learned in the past are pointing
Exactly.
us toward a certain way. And it could even be lessons we learned in this lifetime that we either forgot about or repressed or whatever it was. It's
Yeah.
that feeling that comes up. It's like, I don't know, you know.
Yeah. And I think of that intuition as that the Bible quote that I quote all the time of First John 2:27, that the Holy Spirit within you is your teacher, so you need no other teacher. So to me, that's the intuition. That's the deep knowing. There's like a deep knowing you have that you can tap into.
Yeah, and I think that is the part of us that is shaped by all these lives that we live, and that's what we have that connection to. But we still need to forget all of that so we could not know. I think the not knowing, the mystery, is really the key to all this. It's what allows us to learn lessons because even me and you talk about all this stuff all day, and we still, though, there's still doubt in the back of our mind that be creeping just because we don't know for sure. But it's a mystery that we embrace, and I think as we've talked about this, and as we move to embrace that mystery, it just helps you accept things a lot better.
Yeah. You want to check the chat?
Check the chat. Check out my chat. Summer Station. Exterminate the self-hate so you can love others. Yes, that's it. That's going to be the new one. The new saying here on the over Sharon show.
Josh
Uh,
says churches push self-hate, and some of them without
yeah.
knowing that they're doing it?
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
would say all institutions kind of work on self-hate, pushing self-hate. What were we going to say about that?
Yeah, that's a good point, though. All institutions, for sure. I was gonna say, my Shuri asks a question. Do you want to?
Is it cool to hold others responsible for neglecting? So I think, hey, what's up, Cody? I think you could still, so what we're talking about really is the internal world here. So now you could still hold people responsible for things if
Like
somebody's,
in your mind, I would say, right?
yeah, we're talking about internally in your mind. So you don't, so if somebody does something, you say they come over and they chop your tree down. So you can get pissed off about it and cry and have a big breakdown and be all upset about it. Or you can realize that, you know what, this is what happened. It's reality. This person who cut who knows how they're raised. So you just start to empathize with them instead of getting mad and full of rage. Now you could still call the
And you
police or
can
whoever.
also acknowledge that maybe that happened for a reason.
Yes, this tree was meant to be cut down. Now how do I know? Because it was just cut down now, so it was always meant for that to happen. I just didn't see the signs, or it just didn't line up with what I wanted to happen, right? So this happens now in the physical world. That's the spiritual, the mental realm. Now in the physical realm, you can still call the police. You can get a lawyer, sue the guy, whatever you have to do. But as you're doing it, and we even used the example before of self-defense, if somebody's trying to kill you or harm you, and you have to take self-defense and hurt, or unfortunately, what was the word I'm looking for? God forbid, you have to like kill the person or whatever. you just keep that state of mind of forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, instead of saying rage squirting and getting all excited. Oh, I'm gonna fucking kill this guy and shoot. I'm gonna go kill his family and all that. So it's just about the vibration that you're in, and that's what we're talking about. But if somebody's doing something or collecting or whatever, yeah, you definitely have the right to call them out on it. But how are you going to feel about it? Are you going to feel like a victim and call everybody and say, "Oh, this person's screwing me over," and are you going to let it affect your life and ruin you? Uh, that's basically what we're talking about. So yeah,
Right. And are you calling them out because you genuinely love this person and you want to have some reconciliation and they are willing to do the same? Or are you doing it just to shove it in their face and to, I have to tell you, I have to convince you that I'm right and you're wrong? It's all in your approach too.
that's exactly what happened. They chopped trees down, so now I had to buy a fence amongst other many neglectful things.
Oh
Whoa, I didn't
no.
know that one,
How
huh?
the heck did
Well,
you
it's
know
crazy
that?
because the reason I said it was because our neighbors here cut down these two trees. They were right on the line. They were on their property line. And they cut
But
them
they
down.
were kind of
So
like giving
they
you
cut.
shade and stuff.
Well, they were smaller. They're probably like pine. There's one giant pine tree, like a not a pine, like a I don't know, evergreen, whatever. It's really tall, but it's like a pine, whatever. But then there's a smaller one that's more like a Christmas tree in front of it, more on our property. And then so that's these two, and then going down the property line behind it, there was two small pines. They're probably about 5 feet tall. They weren't that big, but they cut them down, and it just sucks. And they cut some other stuff down here near the fence because it sucks. Because before we had a much you couldn't see, and now it's more. I'm like, why would they do this? But and that's the thing because Elizabeth was really upset about it, and I was telling her that who knows what's these people like what they went through and going that route. But we just decided that we're probably going to get our own trees. I forgot what they call them, but they're not really exactly trees. They're like a tree bush kind of thing, but they grow pretty easily. Yeah, so we might do that. But yeah, it's funny that I just picked that though. I could have picked anything, but
That's crazy.
Brandon needs
Um,
help. Yes.
Josh said somewhere above, I keep seeing videos all over with a caption, quote, "It's everyone's first time living life," end quote, or something to that effect. And I think that is similar to what you're saying. Well, that reminds me of me when I watch a movie that I haven't seen in a while. It's like watching it for the first time because I forgot what happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so every time I come here, I'm living for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could like choose what you could like it's like the Men in Black thing, right? With that flashy thing that makes them forget their memory. That's kind of what it
Mhm.
reminds me. But yeah, I wish you could do that for movies so you can watch them over again, or books so you can read them over again. That's
I
fun.
do that
Just like, yeah, but
naturally.
if there was a way to do it, I mean, if there was a way to be
Uh,
Sharon, we're Sharon.
yeah.
Um, go ahead, go ahead.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, so that's pretty much it for the notes that we had today. And we're right almost at the 2 hour mark.
Yeah.
So
I would say let's read that last piece because
yeah,
it's a nice little quote to end with, even though I'm having a great time, but
yeah, me too. Helpful advice. Always begin and end in the creator, not in technique. I mean, doesn't that just go right to what we said in the beginning? The quote, right? Like, don't sweat the technique, as Rakim says. Rakim and our Eric B. He's a rapper, Rakim. Um, it's about it's like what we say, many paths, one mountaintop. There's many ways up the mountain kind of thing. It's not about the technique, it's about the intention and the love for the creator.
Absolutely. And we don't even know like we've been taught since, arriving at this in this realm, and some of us by many churches or different dogmas and creeds of belief, what the creator is. But in the end, we can't even fathom what it is. And we talk about this on the series that we do in the Tao, because the Tao is basically talking about the way, but it parallels, or it kind of like the way and the creator, God, whatever, they kind of are synonymous in a way. So, but it says like it has no name. It can't be defined. It is not knowable. So it's this mystery. We don't know what the creator is. We can't define it, but um we can, some of us, use our intuition to guide us, um, when we use our heart, dare I say, to love self, love others, like Jesus said.
Yeah, because if you're really what it comes down to, it's like are you going through life thinking that everything's just happening to you and it's oh this is just bad. Like when things happen, it's a worldview like oh this all happened now this sucks. Like it's a great example, COVID, right? 2020 happens and I know I was pissed off and I was like I can't believe this is happening and I felt like such a victim. But now I try to have a different worldview when things happen, a different way to look at it as, all right, so this is what's going on right now. This is reality. This is what's happening. I try to accept it and then say, okay, what does this mean for me? What can I do? How can I be, also, how can I be grateful for this? And
Yes.
I mean, 2020 now looking back, there's so many things to be grateful for. I mean, I wouldn't have met Sharon if things didn't go crazy. We would have this awesome show, all these great people in here. Summer Station says, my neighbor literally killed our pine tree. We had to cut it down, build a fence. I was meant to hear this. Yeah, that's
That's crazy.
the last place I was living at. It was near the beach, and I was living on the second floor of this two-story house, and there was this tree right outside my window. It's really close to the road, and it had some kind of fruit. It looked like maybe they were blackberries or something. I'm not exactly sure, but people would come by and eat them. I'd eat them. I mean, they were like really good. People would come by and collect them, and one day out of nowhere, I woke up and heard like chainsaws because it wasn't my house was right up against this fence and it was in someone else's property. So they were cutting the tree down. I don't know if it was the city or what, but I was just like, no. And I remember there was two trees. That was one of them. And then there was another pine tree. And when I would look from my backyard one time, I was allegedly tripping. And it looked like these two trees because it was windy that looked like they were just dancing like together. And I was like, oh great. And now there's only one. But again, it's the way that it was meant to be. And now I just look for other beautiful trees when I'm out. I just try to enjoy them while they're still here, and not be a victim.
Yeah. Blue Kachina says it's hard to be a tree hugger if there is no tree.
Yeah.
And Brendan says there is no tree.
There is no tree like the Matrix. There is no spoon.
Hmm.
I'm grateful for
Yeah, Josh
2020.
says I often wonder if I could erase my memory of a book or a movie or something, if I would still like it in the same way as the first time because of my mindset. It's not the same as it was when I first saw it. And that's a good point.
Yeah, I bet you
You're
would love
always,
for different
every
reasons.
single second, you're always in a different, everything's different. Something's different every second. Every moment in time is different than the previous one.
Totally. It's like no man walks through the same river twice, no man or woman. It's never the
Yeah.
same man or woman, and it's never the same river. It's always flowing. A lot of trees
Hmm.
get cut down. Yeah, I live here,
Yeah.
the lovely city of I'm here in Connecticut. I listen, state of Connecticut. I still live in Milford. I'm in Canton, and it's more of a rural kind of area, but it's the past few years people are moving in, and every time we go somewhere, it seems like they're just cutting down trees and building condos and stuff. So yeah, you got to pour it out for the trees. But the thing though about the trees is, they get it. I don't think they mourn. They're just like, all right, time to the next, on to the next one. I don't think the trees feel sorry for themselves. They're like, time for that next world. But I do love to hug me some trees. I try to hug trees every time I'm out near one. Went out to eat yesterday, and there was this amazing giant tree. I'll send you some pictures. But yeah, it was like huge. really cool,
Wow.
right in like a downtown area near all these churches and stuff. So you know that thing's been there for a long time. So I just went up to him and was like touching it and feeling the energy.
When I was a kid, we went through the redwood forest and the up in California, and there's another area there with really big trees, I think sequoias, and just enormous. Like you could drive a car through. Like they
Oh,
have even one where they have like a hole in the tree and you can drive your car through it because they're so huge. Um, that was a very memorable for me to see those big giant trees.
yeah, trees are really amazing with the whole root system underneath. It's just like the as above, so below, or so you know what I mean. Yeah, as above, so below kind of principle, just right in there in it. And so I that's why I really feel trees are so, because we're kind of in a tree. A tree is like a tourist field if you look at the top and the bottom. You know, if you pulled it out of the ground. So and you get the world tree and all these things, Yggdrasil. So I feel like that's why trees are so important. But
Josh says trees are really good for metaphors, it seems.
yeah, exactly that too.
Indeed. So,
If your neighbor cuts your tree down and no one hears it, does it really make a noise? Yeah, so
no one is around.
yeah. If your neighbor cuts your tree down and no one's around, does he get away with it? Well, I think where this podcast is about to turn into a pumpkin. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode on the Law of One. We look forward to doing some more of it because it really just seems when you can let go of all these preconceived notions of what things might be and just listen to what he's saying and then pick and choose what works and what makes sense. I mean, there really is a lot here. And I think that's really the key. That's really the key to what we do with everything. Like I tell people I'm doing a episode, like I talk about the Oversharing show. I'm like, yeah, we're doing a series on the Tao Te Ching. And they're always like, are you Taoists? I'm like, no, we just like the
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like just because we're doing, we have to be. Yeah, Delm, we're gonna do the Bhagavad Gita next, and then the.
yeah.
Just kidding.
We're gonna do the
I don't know.
Bible.
I don't know what we're gonna do
Yeah,
next, but
we have
we
no
take
idea,
it.
but we are going to do
Yeah.
some Law of One episodes here and there. And if you guys know of any guests or whatever, let us know. Anyone that is familiar with the Law of One that'd like to talk about it, have them hit us up. You to leave some comments. We'll try to hit some people up if you guys are into that. I mean, if you follow Aaron Abke, just tag him, leave comments, be like, the Oversharing show's the way to go. Up and coming. You guys don't know. I'm gonna look for that restaurant. I consider myself a botanist. It's called the Library in Wallingford, Connecticut, and it's funny because whenever you want to look for it on Google, you can't just start typing library. Like you have to put in the library restaurant, or else you get every other library in the area.
Oh, that's true.
But I was down there, and it looks like an old building, and the one next to it looks like an old building with a brick, and there's these really old churches with tall spires. In the Mason building there, the bottom is a storefront, the top you can see it's like a Mason lodge, and the number is 1911. The cornerstones is 1911. I was like, I got a picture, I'll show you. So,
So I don't know what Tony was talking about. You talked about a restaurant because I said Summer
oh, the
Station said the Giving Tree, and I said I think there's a restaurant called the Giving Tree here locally, and
okay.
there is. It's called Giving Tree Cafe. I just looked it up right now.
Oh, I see. All right, yeah, you're right. I was thinking when I said the tree in front of the restaurant, I was that
Oh, that's crazy. The library restaurant. So
used to be a library.
that's cool.
Now you can eat.
Um, you said Canton. You live in Canton now?
Yeah, yep. It's about an hour from Milford North, and it's Milford's right on the water. It's more suburban. This is still, I mean, it's still suburban, but there's more woods up here. And there's a nice big river that goes through here, the Farmington River. So, but let's see. Ways to support us. You can go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the Oversharing tab. There's several ways to support us there financially in all ways, but the best way to support us is to just hang out here, hit thumbs up, subscribe, share it around to people you think that might enjoy this content, and harass other content creators that you think would be good on this show. I mean, don't harass them. leave comments and mention or drop the name. I'm sure they've heard it before. It's in the ether. People, they know some big creators have said our name before, so it's definitely out there. But yeah, and again, like we said, the best way really to support is just hang out here on Thursdays when we go live or when we premiere these. Just hang out with us. Best darn chat on the internet.
Oh, did
Yeah, let me
someone say
know if you're
that?
coming to CT. Did he say he's coming to Connecticut, Tony?
No, I just said he said I was
Oh,
talking about the tree restaurant. I could dig a library restaurant too. So I said when you're in CT, you can go to the library,
yeah. Let me know.
free
Hit me up.
library restaurant.
I'll show you some good restaurants. Cool. And yeah, look forward to more of these episodes on the Law of One. We're going to be talking about some fun stuff. Maybe one on cataclysms. Let's see what they have to say. Maybe there's something in there. I mean, we found the Bigfoot stuff, so who knows? That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry. You have an amazing day as well. Summer Station, have a blessed day also. Thank you, Tony, for hanging out. Thank you, everybody. Josh, Cody was in there earlier. Both Codys. Um, yeah. Was Zerlat didn't make it in here today. I think he's
No, he
working.
didn't. I don't think he did. Good.
That's all right. We'll forgive him this time. Okay, well, I guess it's time for that special moment. What do we say to the good people, Sharon?
But once you start over Sharon,
Then you totally stop being a Karen. And remember, everybody, we're not trying to tell you how to live.
but maybe we're giving you tips on how to live a life that is more in line with the golden rule.
I like it. I like it. That's right. All right, everybody. Until next week, we'll see you later. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
And we're done.
Sweet.